Welcome back to the AIMS podcast. I am so excited about this actual episode because guess where we are? We're in sunny Florida. Here we are in Miami, and we're going to be talking about something today that not many people are talking about as much as they should. It's not getting as much attention as other things like ChatGPT or other tools, but today we're going to dive into data and how data is important for AI. Welcome to the AIMS podcast, where we talk about AI in plain English, without the hype and without the consultant jargon. Today we have a very interesting guest, Maribeth Martorana, and she has spent decades across different industries, including financial services, looking at data governance, looking at AI and how to position AI within organizations. So welcome, Maribeth. It's an absolute pleasure being here with you in Florida, your hometown. How are you
Thank
feeling
you.
today?
I'm feeling great. I'm so excited to have you here. I hope you're enjoying our wonderful city here of Miami.
Oh, I'm loving the weather because I left rain in London.
Exactly, exactly. It doesn't get any better than this.
It's just absolutely brilliant. And so today, the audience, you're in for a treat because Maribeth brings a perspective to AI that, as I said, we're not talking enough about, but we're going to be talking about that today, data. So before we dive into
Mhm.
data and AI, Maribeth, can you just tell our audience a little bit about your journey and how you ended up in the AI industry?
Sure. I think my journey actually even ended in data. I first thought when I graduated college, believe it or not, I thought I wanted to be a research analyst. And I was a research assistant, and then I was offered a role at a financial information provider, and I started consulting with clients on how to use the software. And as I got to know my clients more, and brilliant, smart people, I started working with seeing what the engineers could do with the technology, and I was fascinated by that. And I shifted my career to work in products, and so I built enterprise and data solutions for banks, capital markets, asset managers. And I was very lucky a second time in my career as I got into product back in 2006 that my company was already using natural language
Oh,
processing, and I
wow.
got to work with those engineers. Uh, so that was when I was at FactSet. So I was building equity research products, and then I went over to Moody's Analytics, where I led research distribution and monetizing the content and the data for Moody's. And then I worked for the Moody's Accelerator, where this was back in 2018, 2019, when you had data transformers and all that. And I could see what the data scientists were doing. And we built solutions where we could take unstructured data for credit analysts and help them do more and not do that manual task and do higher value work.
Right.
So that's like there when even before the whole chat GPT and Gen AI came out, I could see that things were pointing as I was starting to work with those different experiences. So wasn't one experience, it was
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. And what's nice about what you've just said there, Maribeth, and particularly for the women listening in the audience today, is actually knowing how to flex and change as opportunities
Hmm.
arise. And that's what you have to do, particularly as you climb in that corporate ladder. And so let's just talk a little bit about that. Seeing that, financial services, the AI industry is really male dominated. How have you enabled yourself to stand out in such an industry?
Yeah, I learned that as you become more senior, right? And in financial services and technology are two male-dominated industries. So I always say I had a double-edged sword, and I learned as I went through. I always, have to do more of my homework and be more prepared, I think, than some of my male counterparts. But I always stayed curious and wanted to learn, and you have to always learn in these fields. So you will not stay ahead, and you will not also be the person to go to for solving problems and getting those assignments and getting that respect, right? So I could create value, I could problem solve, but I was always up for anything and up for the challenge. I think also, though, there are some things that women have, I think, an advantage. Relationship building, empathy, um, a different perspective. And also, when you are building products or you're dealing with clients and risk and managing all these things, there are different viewpoints. I mean, women need to
Hmm.
be in the room, and we need diverse
Absolutely.
viewpoints to put those things together. So I do think there's that as well. And now, as we're going into I think that's even needed more so.
Even more so. And this is the interesting thing about the AI industry, in that, as we've discussed on previous podcasts, the AI is changing the way we live our lives and the way we work. And of course, females are an integral part of society, integral part of humanity, and therefore we need more female voices in the AI industry to shape products, shape services that serve the general public, which we're a part of. Okay, so let's now dive into that subject, about data. How important would you say, Maribeth, is data to the success of AI implementation, AI usage, deployment?
It's integral. I mean, it's really the other side of the coin, right? And so I have a very like easy formula what I tell people to, whether it's an internal AI solution or an external product you're building. With AI, it's the data plus the AI plus the UX gives you the value. All three of those things must, right? They must. Those all must be happen, and they all must be invested in. And AI is a foundation, right? You have to get, the data is the foundation. And when you take that data, you have to refine it, you have to manage it, right? But also, it's the data that whether it's through the model or on an interface, that is what builds you trust. If it's not accurate, it's not correct, people are going to lose trust. And how do you
Hmm.
get adoption? And that's through trust. So the poor data leads to poor outcomes, poor decisions, and that's not going to give you trust into the system. And that's very important with AI, as we're seeing. We cannot have a black
That's
box.
right.
We need to be transparent. And it's even before AI was a big thing, even when I built products, before this all started to really explode, having a UX with inaccurate data is sort of what we would say putting lipstick on a pig, for lack of a
I
better.
love that. I absolutely love
So,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And isn't it that so right, Maribeth, that uh, no matter how great the technology is, if what's coming out, what's going in, and what's coming out is inaccurate, then really it's
yeah.
pointless.
And then
Yeah,
when you think about it too, I mean, especially in regulated industries like financial services, insurance, healthcare, right? These decisions that they're making are critical. That the data cannot be wrong. It has to be
absolutely,
correct.
absolutely.
And one things I always thought about in financial services, working in it, is, at the end of the day, when somebody is managing a portfolio or a fund, somebody could be investing in that for their pension or their 401k. So it trickles down to street, and we need to basically make sure that we are responsible in what we do with that data, and it's critical.
Hmm. Hmm. It's important that we really emphasize this point, because many of you listening may actually be working in departments which are handling data, which is then going to be fed into
Mhm.
AI models. And others of you are looking at data coming out of AI
Mhm.
models. It is so important that you understand that whether it's going in or coming out, it has got to be accurate, because the impact of that, I love what you just said, on Main Street.
Mhm.
So there's somebody at the end there, either getting a pension payment or the results of an MRI. It
Exactly.
could be a cancer diagnosis if it's not done properly and missed. So the human lives here at stake, and that's why the whole conversation around data, we need to elevate that conversation. We need to be talking more about data governance and ensuring that we're in the right position for AI projects. So that leads then to, what mistakes do you think leaders are making around AI governance and AI, data governance and AI technology?
So I think for years, leaders unfortunately have kicked the can down the road about data, right? Data project, oh, we don't like data project. They just see it as a sunk cost, right? And the data needs to be shifted as it is a strategic asset. And if you are going to invest in AI, right, you need to look at government. Governance is about building trust, and how do you get trust? It's not about compliance. It's actually what I call an enabler. It's like the accelerant to make it happen between having just a pilot or getting into production successfully and having adoption, right? So to get that trust factor, you need to have the right data, the right governance around it, including your lineage, your data ownership, the accountability, all those things in place, or you're not going to get trust, you're not going to get adoption, and you're not going to get the return on your investment. And the experimentation phase is over, and
It's
people
over.
want to see results.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those things don't
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
It's for naught.
So just to make sure our audience are sticking with us on this conversation, Maribeth, when you talk about data lineage, what exactly do you mean?
When I think about data lineages, I think about what is the source of the data, where is it coming from, are all the different points of that piece of information, how it's been handled, the system, the hops, uh, where has it changed hands. That is key to understand where the sourcing of the data is, what it means, and all of that coming through the whole chain of the data chain.
Right, right. So what you're doing there is you're emphasizing the responsibility around data. Because if you're supposed to know where it's coming from, who is owning it, how it is being maintained, how it is being cleaned, and so forth, then there's a level of responsibility that leaders need to ensure
Yes.
is understood within the organization and is structured in the organization.
Exactly. And then even with AI and in these machine learning models, it's even more important, right? So when you just think about it, you have internal information, and some of them may be proprietary. It might be your CRM system. It may be presentations. It may be trading history. But then you also have external data sources you're bringing in, right? Or you're collecting data from the outside world. And now, because you're putting it into these machines, you have to have the data privacy, the security, but also you have to make sure, if you're using external sources or collecting it, do I have the licensing rights to that, or the IP rights, right? So there are terms and conditions for this data, whether it's internal, like contact information or customer information, or external data. So that's even now, but this whole due diligence factor of like, how can I use it? When can I use it? What do I need to do with the data privacy, the data masking, and all that? That's another layer.
Yeah. And that's so important because historically, when, most businesses, when you look at regulated industries, they're using services from other companies, what we call third-party vendors. And those third-party vendors will have, as you say, the T's and C's, the terms and the conditions. And in there, you will have rights around the usage of the data that they provide. If you are then going to transfer that to models, whether you're building them internally or buying from another third party, ensure that you review the terms and conditions of those contracts, because you want to make sure that you are not breaching the license terms for the use of data coming from a third party. So that's very important. So the lawyers, if you're listening,
yes. Yes. And the other thing to keep in mind, a lot of people think more and more about web scraping and content collecting data. Make sure that it's public data and what the terms are for that as well. So if you're doing a data feed from someone, or you're going collecting it, do I have the rights to use that as well?
Yeah. Here aims, as we, got into social media. People who know me know I wasn't big on social media, but now we're there.
No, I
my
wasn't
face
either.
is there. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And as the social media team are putting together the clips for posting, one of the things I always say to them is, ensure the images are publicly available, ensure that you're looking at websites that allow for the use of those images as you're cutting them into the videos. So that's hugely important when you're looking at that. So data then, Maribeth, what I'm hearing you saying is data cannot be an afterthought.
No.
It can't be bringing the shiny tools and then let's think about the data.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, when you just think about it, it's being ingested, it's being inputted in this model. There's outputs, there's decisions being made on it, there's risk being managed, all of that. So if it's not managed, right, fit for purpose, managed correctly, quality controlled, monitored, you, it's not going to work. You're going
It's
to have
not going to work,
problems.
right? As the AI technology enhances, and we know that AI is moving at mega speed, it's not staying still.
No.
So now everybody's talking about agentic AI. It's all about the agents now, and agents coexisting with humans, working in the same workflow. How does that change the whole data conversation, if it does?
Yeah. So when I think about agentic, or even a step back even before agentic, uh, I just think of with we're talking about AI transformation and transforming these organizations. So when you think of transformation, it's not just bolting on some tools, right? We're actually the agents are going to be actually taking over tasks within workflows in these organizations. So when you think about that, they're going to be embedded. So right now, when you go into, let's just say to the audience, you go into a chat GPT, you might be asking it to summarize or find some information and serve that information up. But now these agents are going to be taking action, right? So what are we exposing? So that you start to see the cracks in the organization. They can spread very quickly. So, what is the governance, the security of the data, my rights? If there's a but, what I do think is essential with agentic AI, I do still believe there are some things that are deterministic and things that the agent can do, but there are things that still need human judgment or human oversight. And I do feel that there still is a human approach and a human center approach to it. You still have for these organizations certain fiduciary responsibilities, things like that, and you have to be careful to think about where is the right place to have the agent, and the agent can be autonomous versus where do we need a human to come in and what do we need to do there.
To supervise.
Yes. So I think we're going to in the future be having a hybrid of the human and the agent together.
Right. Because we shouldn't fool ourselves. When you put agents into the workflow, agents, they have one goal and one goal only. It is an outcome.
Yes.
So a human will kind of take a tea break, have a little chat about the weekend, have a little whinge and a whine about something that they don't like about the workplace. The agent doesn't. It has one objective, and that is to create the outcome that it thinks it should create. And so it's going to go anywhere it has permissions to go to get data. And it may be that some places you don't want it to go.
Exactly. And you have to have those guardrails put in and security measures walled off, what it can have access to, what it cannot have access to. So, unless you do that, you cannot be certain that it's not going to go off the rails, so to speak. I was watching actually another podcast not too long ago when someone was talking about making trading agents, and they had to actually give rules to the agents doing trades that you cannot take the other side of the trade because they want to win.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah,
you have to be
absolutely.
careful with like your incentives with them and like how you are rewarding the agent, right, to have the right behavior, so to speak, when you think about it, which is
Mm.
fascinating
It's
when you start
very
thinking.
fascinating when you start thinking about it. It's uh, you have humans working with agents, and humans need to understand how agents process and use information.
Mhm.
So, what are the additional risks that you think the agent is introducing, which particularly leaders need to be really um, uh, aware of?
Well, one thing is, I think that people need to think about, um, kind of when I've worked with partners on the orchestration of these agents and putting them together, you need to break down all the tasks, right? And you need to have some transparency in what's going on and oversight, because again, you cannot have a black box, right? We need to be transparent, AI responsible. So if the data is not been collected or maintained correctly, the quality, the provenance, the lineage, something could go awry. The due diligence bar is higher,
Higher.
right? And I feel it sets it higher. And that is what, then you can be confident with the autonomy they take and what they're doing. But if and you'll have more trust behind the your decisions that you're making. But that
Hmm.
that I feel is what is changing the game.
Right, right. So as we said earlier that organizations, many organizations, they will outsource parts of their workflow, or they will actually bring in third-party services into the organization. And as this is happening, that orchestration that we talk about, so you've got the data, you've got the tech tools, the tech stack, the AI models, but the orchestration around it. What does trusted and what does good look like?
To me, I look at, well, first of all, I mean, it all goes back to, no matter what you're going to decide with one of these projects, what you're doing, it all goes back to what the business wants, right? It
Mm-hmm.
all goes back to, is it increasing revenues? Is it, operational efficiency, risk mitigation, customer experience? And so I think you have to test the agents or whatnot, or what you're doing against those goals and those what you're doing, and each task there's the benchmarking and all that to it, but you need to actually give the agents the right context of what we're doing. The models have to have that, so the right decisions and
That's
insights are
it.
being made. But that's how I think about it. I always start with the business. uh, and anybody who's doing AI strategy or transformation, you have to also say to yourself, well, if I'm doing this thing, is it right for an agent? Is it right for the AI? What am I doing? And maybe there's a different solution, right? That does happen. So I think we just can't be the shiny tool in looking for a solution.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I love what you just said because it always goes back to what's the strategic objective of the organization? Are you trying
Hmm.
to solve a problem which is currently in the business, or are you trying to meet a challenge in order to move your business forward? Whatever that strategic imperative is, then as you look at using AI to create that added value to move the dial for your business, and then you're bringing in the data conversation into that. Stick to the basics, go back and make sure you understand why you're doing it, and then that drives the orchestration conversation
Yeah,
around how you get
which,
it
because
right.
that will drive what use case you're doing, right?
Absolutely.
And then you'll choose the use case that matches up to achieve what you're doing, right? And then that's going to then trickle down to, okay, then this is what I'm going to build or execute or figure that out. But again, to be successful, we need to have, it comes from the business, and then we'll figure out, okay, and then start small, right? Learn, right? And gain confidence, and as you gain confidence you do more, but always start small. And also by having the business strategy and the use case, you'll know what you need to do with your data and where to be, and you won't be boiling the ocean, right? You can be surgical,
Right.
like I need to fix this piece, because there may be different parts like of the data sets in the organization, but let's figure out what the business objective is, what the use cases are, and then you can figure those pieces out. So you can marry your data strategy with your AI strategy, and the two can be linked.
Marrying the data strategy with the AI strategy. Don't forget that. If you don't remember anything else from this podcast, marrying the AI strategy with the data strategy. Those two go hand in glove, they go together. So, Maribeth, let's just take a spin here and think
Mhm.
about leaders themselves. How can leaders ensure that the strategy actually delivers not just the planned outcomes, but the right outcomes?
Mhm.
Because the right outcomes isn't just about the organization, it's about a bigger thing.
Yeah, I think where you're going here is, it goes back to the stakeholders, the board. You have a number, your customers, right? Your employees. So I think when I think about the right outcomes, right, there's a business impact and a value, and we're going first. Again, I'm going to that top down, like that business objective. But if you go and you think about that very thoughtfully, you then, when you know what the hey, okay, I want to mitigate my risk in my portfolio by X percentage, right? Then okay, these are my use cases, and then my outcome I go and I measure it against that objective,
Right.
right? And so then you can do that with it, and then but you also need to make sure you have an owner of each one of these. And again, I think of being very thoughtful in how you develop it. And I always tell people, you think big, but you start small,
Small.
and you get the confidence, and you get one use case right. Then you can expand that. Then you do the next one, and you go from there.
Right. Are there any particular tools that can differentiate organizations from competitors? What's going to make them have the edge in terms of this data play?
Uh, Between data and I call it really, I think there's a multitude of things, right? It's almost like what I consider organizational readiness,
Mhm.
right? The leadership needs to be ready, the culture, right? There's a lot of human aspect to this. It's the technology is the easy part, as my CTO will always say. The hard part is the people issues. So I think there is, you need to think about, there's the people, yes, there's the data and the things that you need, but then there's the risk and governance and then a human centric approach. So it needs to come all together for you to get there.
Hmm. And you hit on a word there, culture.
Mm-hmm.
Why is culture so important when we were trying to uh, position data and AI in the right place? Why is culture so important?
With anything, when you think about it, with any organization of like what you want it to be, right, or where you want it to go, if they don't understand or understand the culture is that, like, let's say we're a data driven organization, right? A lot of people say that. Well, if you're a data driven organization, you're going to need to care about that data. Your employees are going to need to understand what that means. What precautions do I take with our data? How do I protect it? How do I use it? How do I make sure I have quality data? How do I check that? How do we put in the guardrails? And I think that will then be reflected in the work you do and how you go about your projects and how you go through implementing these things and like the transformation of the organization. That's why I go back to its organizational readiness, and it's like those things together.
Mhm. Organizational readiness. So it doesn't start with the technology or the AI kit. Notice that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't start with the AI kit. It starts with the organization culture, making sure the organization is ready to adopt AI, because not all organizations have the infrastructure, have the skills, the competency
Mm-hmm.
in which to pull AI into the business.
Yes, and I think, and everybody is on a different, stage in the journey, and I think that a big part of it, as we're talking about with the culture too, there's a lot of change going on, right? A lot of change for the leaders, a lot of change for people working with their roles, right? Things could be changing. Is it going to be an agent tomorrow with me, or is it going to be me? So you need to, comes from the leaders of like your vision and that you're aligned, but then it also comes to bringing people who are going to have changes happening, have them be part of the solution, right? Then you get more buy-in, but then it also, you educate them and you lift them up, and they're going to have to be reskilled. So that's how you go and get your culture to the culture actually is probably the harder thing to do. You could put the solution in probably much sooner technology wise, and it could take years with culture,
Gotcha.
months, years.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And that's a beautiful segue to talk about what does the future look like of the workplace with those who are in university now, those who are graduating. Everybody knows I'm very passionate about getting students ready for the workplace. So, what would your advice be to those graduates who are looking to enter the workforce, and they're entering a workforce now with AI? When we entered the workforce, it wasn't there. Not that we are that old. We're not really. We're 25 really. But what's your advice to graduates
yeah.
entering the
So
workforce?
for when I was graduating college or whatnot, it was you need to know how to work with a spreadsheet, right?
Right.
And so what I tell we have summer interns, and what I tell them is some of them are more business focused and some are more technical. And I tell them, like, there is the knowing your subject matter, or like knowing what you're studied, went to school for, but you need to be able to problem solve and communicate and all that. But what I tell them though, even the ones who are finance majors, I say, well, you need to learn a little some of the technology and the AI and how to work with it. So, play with Claude, play with ChatGPT, right? Learn, take what I love is Anthropic with their skill jar classes. They can get the certifications and they could take that, or Google with their Google Grow certificate. So I tell them to actually be curious and learn, and don't stop learning, but being AI native, so that when they go out there, that they have this experience on their resume. When they go to interview, um, they understand what that means, as this is changing. And I'm seeing the graduates that have done that, they're the ones
Wow.
who are able to, be employed, and they have an easier time right now to for employment coming out of school. Yeah.
So your entry into the workplace actually starts before you try for an internship, before you try for a graduate entry level role. It starts right now, and I love those suggestions that you've given them. There's lots of free resources out there that they can take advantage of.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
fantastic. I mean, all of the large model companies,
The
hyperscalers,
hyperscalers are offering.
Microsoft, Google, they all have certifications and things for students, and you just take advantage of it, because you taking advantage of that, it's just going to help you. You're going to learn. And what I also tell them too is, if you have projects that are with these technologies or something, you do something in your class. I was helping someone a couple years ago who was trying to find a job in consulting, and I found out that he had done some projects with Python, and I'm like, none of this is on your resume. And I said, put it on your resume. And so those are some of the things I tell them, even though he was an accounting major, accounting finance. I said, put that on your resume. And that's what people wanted to hear about. And he did get finally was employed. But yeah, it's, those are the things that they need to make sure they don't think about. But those are the things that people are going to be interested.
Right. And just finally, on that point about students and entry level roles, and so we do want to emphasize, though, while there is the technology conversation, there's also the human conversation, the soft skills conversation, and the future, when the agent is actually doing a lot of the not just grunge work now, but actual analytical work, really technical work will be done in the future by agents. The workplace still needs empathy, compassion, understanding, good judgment, build those soft skills now. They're going to be more important for the future leaders than ever before. So from this conversation today, Maribeth, I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here with us. It's been absolutely inspiring. The successful AI initiatives are those that build trust, but trust comes from data. If the data isn't right, the trust goes through the window. So remember, your AI strategy needs to flow in line with your organizational strategy. The two go hand in hand. It's been absolutely wonderful talking with you today, Maribeth. Thank you
It's been
again
my
for
pleasure.
taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Rob. And
Good.
I hope you enjoy Miami on the rest of your stay.
I'm sure I'm going to. And if you found the conversation interesting, please share it with someone you think will also find it of interest. Thank you again for taking the time to be here watching the AIMS podcast. See you next time.